How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about After Dark, a horror anthology. This is from Aftershock Comics and is a one-shot. So I had seen Aftershock around for a bit, but I hadn't picked up any of their books before. I noticed them, but I hadn't really bought anything yet. But then I saw this, an anthology comic with a cool zombie crawling out of the water. I'm a big horror geek and I love anthology comics, so I couldn't resist picking this up, and it really is a fun, cool book, and that's getting me thinking maybe I should, look more into what Aftershock does. If you guys have any Aftershock comic recommendations, there's actually in the back of this book, there's a double-page ad, and the ad shows a bunch of cool stuff that Aftershock has made, and I'm curious, if you guys, if any of these books are, like, really, really good, like if you've read them before, tell me your recommendations, because I am more curious, I really like the look of this one, the Knock 'em Dead, and it's a skeleton doing stand-up comedy. I might look for that. That looks really fun. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the cover. After Dark, and the dark is splashy, and a horror anthology, and you get the names of all the writers and the artist over here, and you get this zombie lady crawling out of the water with all these eyes behind her. This is a pretty sweet cover, and I gotta love it. But also, it sucks that I have to mention this, but YouTube, don't freak out. This is a zombie lady, but everything is either censored by her hair or the shadows. It sucks that I have to say that really quick, but YouTube can kind of go nuts sometimes. Anyway, flip it to the back, and you can see this lady covered in spiders. We'll get to what she's doing in a minute, and a bit of a summary about who worked on the book, and we can also see it's $6.99 higher in Canada, and the 0011, first printing, first edition, and all that. Open it up, and let's take a look at the credits page, and if you pause it right here, you can see who did what, and what stories are in here. You get Dust to Dust, which is your first story, Black-Eyed Kids: Sin of the Parents, Inheritance, and Tales of Mother F. Goose, Along Came a Spider. Now, Black-Eyed Kids is actually a tie-in to, they have a Black-Eyed Kids comic. There's I think 3 volumes of it now or something. But I hadn't read the Black-Eyed Kids comic, and I understood this. This is a good standalone, so don't worry if you haven't read it. And Tales of Mother F. Goose, Along Came a Spider is a setup for a series they're going to do, but like the Black-Eyed Kids one, it is self-contained, and it doesn't rely on you having to read the other books, so it is a standalone story too. So 2 of these do tie into something else, but they are still standalone, so don't worry about that. But I might check out what they tie into, because like I said, I read this and I'm like, wow, Aftershock's pretty interesting. But let's take a look at these stories. Now, really quick before we get into here, I'm not going to do any major spoilers. I do want to say my piece on a few plot points, and I want you guys to have a basic understanding of what stories you're getting in here. But I'm going to try to avoid doing any major spoilers, and I'm going to, try not to show you guys too much. So let's jump into the first story, and this is the one entitled Dust to Dust. And you can see it's a small, dingy diner, and a mysterious figure walks in a hat and a coat, and the lady starts to scream, and this is a fun twist right off the bat, it's the world's most polite zombie. So he's not hostile. He's walking in and his face is messed up. And he's like, "Pardon me, ma'am. Excuse my appearance. Could I please get a nice cup of coffee?" And he tries to drink it and he spills it all over the bar, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I made a mess." So right off the bat, zombie walks into a diner. That's a fun and crazy concept. but after he gets his coffee, tells his story, and we find that him and his wife had recently died, and he's all sad, and he said that his wife made him make a promise to her, and at first he didn't want to do it, and then the wife starts haunting him, but the promise was that they used to travel back when she was alive, and that he would take her ashes to all the different spots that were significant to them and sprinkle a little bit around the world. And this is one of those stories about growing old, but also living your life with a fun, dark twist ending. One of those with a little bit of a double twist, what happens and then how it impacts the main girl in this story. Overall, I really love this story, just the idea of a very polite zombie, but it really did hit home and it had a good meaning, and it was really interesting and different, and I really love the first story here. Up next, we have the Black Eyed Kids one, BEK, Black Eyed Kids, and I know that Black Eyed Kids, not only does it tie into another comic, but it's sort of inspired by something from the internet. Like, this was an internet legend about these black-eyed children, and you get this grandma taking care of two grandkids when one of them says, hey, there's someone hanging out in the backyard. So she goes to check on them, and she brings her two, I love this, she brings her two hounds with her, which is really cool, but it's this mysterious kid, a black-eyed kid, on the swing set just sort of hanging out and waiting for them, and he begins to talk about a deal that they made a long time ago, and they really do a good job of making this kid pretty menacing and evil sounding, So this is primarily just a story about a conversation, but it does have those creepy undertones and the idea of a mysterious and threatening figure showing up to call you out on something. It's pretty cool. Not as good as the first one, but it does make me curious about the rest of the series. Up next, we have this story, and I really do love the art. This one's called Inheritance, and you see this is your main figure, this person with a crowbar and some tactical suit with a breathing apparatus, and we open it up after the title page, and we're greeted to a big double page spread just showing us how messed up the world is. Ships aren't in water but big piles of mud, and there's the figure looking down and the buildings are all destroyed. Crazy messed up future, smog in the air, and you get him walking across the lake bed when all of a sudden this guy tunnels out, this person from the world before, and he's like, oh, I'm dying, I wanted to see the world one last time, and he gives a little bit as to, how we got to this situation. Yeah, this story is a little bit like the Lorax, but I really do love the art, and it does have kind of an out-of-nowhere twist, but when you think about it, you're like, oh, okay, that does make sense, So, yeah, the world looks nice. The story, the bones are something we've very much seen before, but then we get to the fun twist ending, and I'm like, ooh, wow, that was dark, but like I said, makes sense. This is also a pretty short one, too. I didn't count the page numbers, but it felt like it went by really quick. And up next, and I gotta keep my thumb right there, we have Along Came a Spider, and we have this cop lady covered in spiders and being hid in the floorboards. But how did she get there? And we get to see that there's this serial killer that's killing women by covering them in spiders, and the poison ones are killing them. And you get to meet the cop and her partner, and the partner is, the partner is really a gruff and older cop, and she's the younger one, and she's Miss Muffet, because this is tied into that Mother Goose book they're doing, and this is a case where every little thing in here. You know, the club that the girls worked at is Bo Peep's, you know, and the girls are all dressed up like sheep. And this is the house of Old MacDonald, which murdered his family. So you can see their true crime styled versions of all these old fairy tales. So that is interesting. You know, some of the references are a little heavy-handed, you know, and they do come quite often. But it's still really a fun idea, and you know, this is gonna lead into a spin-off. I might pick that up. I don't know. Your main character is pretty cool, and they set her up here, and I'm wondering how the book will read without having her setup, or will they reprint this? I don't know. Or maybe the book will be anthology and it won't even be about her. I haven't read the book yet. But anyway, she responds to a call, some missing kids at the Old MacDonald house, and she finds a bunch of spiders crawling around, so maybe that's related to the case. I think this is the longest story. Like I said, I didn't count the pages, but really got some room to breathe and develop with you know, like you saw in the fast forward in the prologue, you know, the how did we get here? She is going to be covered with spiders, so it has a pretty deep and dark end. But yeah, overall, I really did like this book. Really fun. The 4 stories were pretty good. $6.99 is a good price, you know, not going too high, but you know, it's, you know, 4 relatively long stories, all in color and at a magazine size. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but this is magazine size, so it's a little bigger than a normal comic. And overall, I really had fun with this, and this is making me curious about what else Aftershock did. So if you guys got any Aftershock recommendations, I could really go for picking up a graphic novel, especially I really like the standalone ones, you know, so I am looking at a few of these. Like, did you guys read Knock 'em Dead? Because I think that one looks the most interesting, you know. But yeah, there's some interesting looking stuff here. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist at the bottom. If you guys want to see more, you can click there and see more. It should be more videos that are in some way related to this. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.